Right, so I've covered some local election successes at Labour's expense recently, where Keir Starmer's ridiculous anti-ceasefire position with regards to Israel and Gaza are seeing Labour councillors resign or defect. Resignations have triggered elections, which Labour have then gone on to lose. Labour has lost control of several councils it held majorities in. Oxford, Burnley and most recently Norwich have all been hit by Starmer's pro-Israel, inhumane, humanitarian pause approaches. Well, with him now declaring his public praise for Margaret Thatcher and the inspiration he takes from her, as Tony Blair did before him, as I covered in my previous video, the fact he's lost these local politicians clearly doesn't faze him in his own personal pursuit for power. They are collateral damage he's prepared to pay. And if to underline that, not only are Labour councillors leaving, but they might be finding themselves victims of the ongoing purge of anyone who doesn't drink the Kool-Aid at the fountain of St. Keith, the patron saint of kid starvers. As one councillor, Jewish incidentally, is claiming he's in danger of being deselected ahead of local elections because he dares to be pro-Palestine. I wonder how many more Labour councillors are finding themselves in the same boat. Right, so Keir Starmer's local election record is rank thanks to his overt support for Israel, Zionist without qualification, as he always says he is, his opposition to ceasefires, despite it literally how you find lasting peace and stop people being killed. A strange position for an apparent former human rights lawyer. And it's not that surprising when you figure how disgusted people are by that stance. It has caused his party real damage. Over 50 councillors up and down this country have resigned. He lost 10 front benchers over a vote on a ceasefire, but he hasn't actually budged an inch on anything. He won't change, won't listen. The only thing that matters to him are his polling numbers. Local Labour councillors? Well, they likely don't register on his radar as they go. He doesn't care. As long as his journey to number 10 seems academic, nothing else matters. Well, that might not be completely true as it happens. In fact, as far as elected Labour figures go, there's nothing Starmer hates more than somebody else getting ideas of their own, daring to oppose the law as he lays it down in his own party. The rotten lefties must go, you see. We're all about Thatcherism in Labour now. We're all about Israel, as we always have been. Those lovely lobbyists and their donations, we need to deliver on what they're paying for. Yada, yada, yada. Well, we've seen Deselections have left the MPs under the auspices of boundary changes, so should we be surprised he's trying to ditch local councillors in a similar fashion? This was, after all, why Labour lost control of Norwich City Council, as I mentioned last week in a video. Resignations of 4 Norwich City councillors and 2 Norfolk County councillors from the party over a decision to deselect a sitting MP, and now another has stuck their hand up saying they're being targeted too. This time we're on Lambeth Borough Council, where Labour Councillor Martin Abrams has claimed publicly this week that Labour officials are coming after him, looking to deselect him, for opposing Starmer's stance on humanitarian pauses. And actually, what Abrams had to say exposes a lot of what many of us are suspected to be going on behind the scenes. He said, there are strict diktats being issued from the very top of the party down which have created an ice-cold chilling effect with the aim of silencing any and all debate on the current situation in Gaza and any support for the Palestinian people. I have been particularly outspoken on the horrors taking place in Palestine and Gaza, and the Labour leadership's shocking refusal to call for an immediate ceasefire, and as a result there are now clear attempts to deselect me as a Labour Party councillor for my views. Councillor Abrams has also said the first stage of deselecting him is already happening, with various factions having seized control of local branch elections in his local patch of Streatham, which have seen ballots either arriving late or not at all, and it's the same old bad elements in Streatham that dominated there previously, as Councillor Abrams went on to explain by saying, as a Jewish Labour Party councillor, I was shocked and appalled by the events in Israel on the 7th of October, but every single day since has brought even more horrors to the people of Gaza. The people behind Chukar Amunah are back in Streatham, and I refuse to be silenced and will continue to speak out and stand up against all forms of oppression and injustice. Chukar Amunah was, of course, formerly the MP for Streatham. He defected to Change UK, some of you might recall, and when they tanked, he jumped to the Lib Dems, where he stood for Parliament for them in 2019 and deservedly lost. He now works for JP Morgan Chase as an investment banker. Where better for a red Tory to end up? But unfortunately his faction still exists in Labour, and they are taking over in Streatham again at the expense of decent councillors who won't be silenced, like Martin Abrams. If he's going down, though, he's going to go down fighting. For example, in light of Starmer's praise for Margaret Thatcher, he put out a tweet saying, praising Margaret Thatcher and committing to even more austerity and spending cuts. Just an average day for Sir Keir Starmer. Well, indeed. He's also spoken to Matthew Wright about it on LBC, who introduced him as a Momentum spokesperson, which really wasn't the point, but we'll have people thinking, here's another rotten lefty moaning about Starmer, but really they should be thinking about what the hell is a Labour leader doing praising Thatcher. His wing of the Labour Party ought to be irrelevant, or at least very much a secondary consideration to that. Abrams was asked what he thought of Starmer's Torygraph article praising Thatcher, and he said, "It's rendered me speechless, because in my opinion no Labour leader should be heaping praise on Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher has left a completely toxic legacy from her tenure as Prime Minister, and let's not forget she resigned as Prime Minister in 1990. But we're still feeling the massive impact, the devastating impacts from her 11 years as Prime Minister. One thing I would like to raise that I didn't mention previously, one thing that Margaret Thatcher did when she became Prime Minister, she essentially sold off our North Sea oil assets in order to pay for tax cuts for the richest people in the UK, rather than invest the profits from those assets like the Norwegians have done to create something like a sovereign wealth fund. Norway have a £1.5 trillion sovereign wealth fund, and that equates to something like £250,000 for every Norwegian citizen. Margaret Thatcher flogged our oil off to the highest bidder and gave it away as tax cuts for the richest." It's a very underreported story that he brought up on the North Sea oil, how Norway chose to invest, whereas the Tories just gave it away in tax cuts to the rich. But this is what Starmer is praising by bringing her up. She was a pariah. The legacy of her politics that we're still living with to this day has harmed lives, not helped them, and devastated our economy, not helped it. And Starmer is all about continuing that. And by calling him out, any elected Labour official, it seems, from MPs who have done so and been deselected, to the likes of Councillor Abrams now facing it in Lambeth, I'm not sure how much support he's getting there. Could we see resignations in solidarity with Councillor Abrams if he gets pushed out for daring to hold his party leader to account? I guess we will have to wait and see. I sincerely hope some of his Labour colleagues there have it in them, but Labour definitely needs more Martin Abrams than it needs Keir Starmer. And if you think likewise, you'd be better off taking your vote elsewhere. Solidarity to Martin, though. Keep calling the fraud out. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please do have your say on this story in the comments below and be part of the conversation. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where takeovers of local party infrastructure by Starmeroids is nothing new. We've seen it in Hackney, in Broxtowe, in Uxbridge, in Wirral West and more, but also in Sheffield. And just as Martin Abrams is facing deselection in London, the cult of Starmer has done likewise to dissenting councillors there. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.